Welcome, everyone, to the Whole Wellness Mama Summit, where we're unlocking the healthiest, joy filled mom in you using strategies from various wellness and parenting experts. I'm Amy Nesbitt, and if you know anything about me, you know I love everything sanity saving for moms. So I am really excited to introduce you to Lori Sugarman-li today to talk about ways to function well as a family. Lori believes deeply in the power of families. She is a certified fair play facilitator, family coach, and children's book author. She's dedicated to fostering meaningful conversations, encouraging families to contemplate how they care for one another and their shared space. And she has a passion for embracing the potential for children of any age to engage in the critical conversations and meaningful tasks of the home. That just speaks to my heart dearly.
I'm so glad.
And she has 12 years as a professional communications strategist and a decade of experience devoted to full time care for her children or for her family, community, and children's organizations worldwide, which makes her uniquely qualified to support families through shifts in the language and systems that guide their daily flow. And she and her husband, two sons, and are Canadian born, but they live steps from Lake Michigan in Chicago. So, welcome, Lori.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be with you.
I'm so glad to have you. For a lot of people, they're meeting you for the first time. Can you share your quick story of how you came to where you are now?
Yeah. As you mentioned, I worked in marketing strategy. And when I had my first child, I took a leave. I was working for a luxury hotel company at the time. Fabulous gig before children, slightly more complicated after children. I searched for flexibility in the role. It wasn't on offer at the time. And so I thought, you know what? Let me pivot into the next chapter of my life, which is to take all my passion for hard work and contribution and focus it on my family and community. And it was my unpaid stage, as I call it. I thrived in that role. My family and community certainly valued it. But when we moved from Canada to London, England, and then London, England to Chicago, we, with every move, have to renew our foundational family documents. So insurance and wills and whatnot. My husband said to me in Chicago, look, let's look into getting you disability insurance. Because he valued my role so much, he thought, if anything happens to you, I'll take a leave and head the family. We went through all the rigmarole of applications, only for me to be summarily rejected by the insurance agent who said to me, ma'am, we don't value homemakers that high. And it was such a bubble bursting moment for me. It really lit me on fire. And this like identification of the devaluing of care work in our society. You know, it's not counted in the GDP or by any other economic indicators. And it's sort of this expectation that women will just show up and provide all of this work, whether or not you work outside the home, right? It rests primarily on the shoulders of women. And the the illumination of the fact that this was not valued by societal indicators was such a shock to me, and it set me on this mission to speak about the visibility and value of care work. And I had the opportunity to train with Eve Rodsky, who's the author of the book Fair Play, and was very, very moved by that experience and wanted to become more deeply a part of her work. And I thought, well, where does my credibility lie? I'm, at the time was labeled a stay-at-home mom, right? Despite my thousands of hours of contributions all over the place. And I thought, well, what can I do? I don't have a platform for impacting government policy or corporations or even adult partnerships, but I did feel a credibility and an opportunity to speak to children. And so I wrote this book, which is really all about the power of families and how they care for one another and the space that they share.
I love that. And I had a chance to read it, and everybody should go grab it because it is such a great basis for starting these conversations, right? And exposing our children to some of the things that we don't see or they might not pay attention to. So we'll get deeper into it, but it was fantastic. I love it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So can you introduce us to this idea of family flow? I know you kind of talk about family flow, so everyone's on the same page to start.
Yeah, so it's just this recognition or like a reflection of that this we all live in these amazing little family units and we have like a daily cadence and daily agreements that support us getting from A to B to C. And each family is so unique in how they make plans and make agreements. And I call it a flow because the more aware we are of these agreements, like the less stuck that we are. And the more we talk about how we move through the world, the more efficiently we do it.
I love it because we as women, I speak for myself, I guess I do work and I work outside the home and I have so many mom friends where we talk about, oh my gosh, we're doing like we both work full time, but we just so much more, and a lot of it we kind of put on ourselves because we don't communicate with either our partners or our kids or whatever it might be. And there's definitely more that we can do instead of just doing it ourselves because it's faster or it's easy or it's, whatever it is. So I love that you call it this flow where we kind of communicate with each other. We figure out what all the things we're doing, right? And figure out how
Mhm.
to do it best as a family. Uh,
That's right.
yeah. So as we talk about how do we talk about things, what's that first step in bringing the family together to even address this and bring it up?
So, where I love to start with families that I coach and where I always start with my own family is with the nucleus of values. And, even young children, when they're invited into a conversation about values, have so much to offer. They're so thoughtful. And the question I like to ask is what feels important to us about our space, about how we flow, about how we connect with each other? And are we doing anything that actually doesn't feel important? So why are we doing that? And can we release it? And so if you sit down and really go back to basics and say, what as a family is important to us? What are our values? The offshoot from that are the standards that you set for your family. And that relates to your space and that relates to how you connect with one another. And again, how you move within the community. And so it also acts as sort of like a North Star. If you ever fall off track and you need to get realigned, it always goes back to, are we connected to our values? Have our values evolved?
Mhm.
Right. And so starting there, but then also making sure to revisit that with the frequency that is right for your family. I love to suggest a family meeting once a week if you can. It doesn't have to be like a whole big thing, but just like a time where you may even connect. It could even be just 5 minutes
Mhm.
that you regroup and say, everything we talked about last week, how did it go? And as we look at the week ahead, what would we change? What kind of support do we need? Who has extra and needs to maybe like pass something off, or who has capacity and maybe can take something on? And I think that these weekly connections just give everybody a chance to be heard and understood, and also to know with intention where they need to head for the week ahead.
Yeah. I love family meetings. That's kind of our space to plan,
Mhm.
we like to plan meals, but we kind of get people on board. We also talk about our schedule of, okay, what are the crazy things we have this week? What does it look like? Like you're saying, do we need to shift around responsibilities? Do two kids need to be in different places at the same time? Are we
Right.
that?
Always.
Do we have meetings? Whatever it is. So I think it's so essential. And then we try to build in like a fun component to it too. Just
Yes. That's the best. I mean, if it's like a special snack or like a treat that you save that you don't have that often, or maybe you have like a beautiful blanket that you all sit under together, or whatever it is that makes this like feel like a special time and not a stressful time.
yeah. And like you said, it doesn't have to be this super long time. Sometimes it's really fast, we like I've mapped out something or whatever it is, we've already talked about it before, So I appreciate that you said it could be as short or as long as you want, right?
Yeah, especially if you have little kids, like you're not going to
Yeah.
keep their attention for that long, but also children love rituals, right? And they love things that are repetitive, that they can count on, that they can look forward to. So,
Are there other essential components that you would add for running and nurturing our home as a family?
Oh, so many. The top three things that I'd like to talk about as it relates to the work of care, the work of family, and engaging children really are, and you touched on this earlier, making the work visible. So much of it happens when children, if they're young children, while they're napping, or they're a little bit older while they're at school, or maybe you have someone who comes from outside of the home to help. And so that person is working away and isn't really seen. But also, and I should say a lot of it happens like in the late hours and the early hours, right? Before moms who work outside the home begin their workday. But then also, so much of this work is mental and emotional. And the weight of that we know women carry an inequitable load of, it's like this ticker tape, right? That's going through your brain at all times with like everything you've noticed and everything you have to remember and everything that you have to not miss, right? For the house of cards not to fall. And so what I recommend is for caregivers and parents to be a bit more loud about the things that they're doing that are the work of nurturing and nourishing, and so that children can sort of reflect. And this is really what I wanted to do with the book too, is provide an opportunity for reflection and say, oh yeah, like there actually is a ton of stuff. Like we always have toilet paper. I always have socks that fit. That I thought that was magical, but no, like that's actually a lot of work. And then paired with that is the why behind the work. So the meaning, right? It's not just like a list of chores, but all of these things have real significance to the wellness of our family. And again, the way that we flow without blockages, without stickiness. Um, and this is meaningful for kids too, to form connections with the work if they understand that the why directly impacts them. So I'll give you an example. I have a 13-year-old. He wouldn't necessarily be keen to be changing his bed sheets, right? It's not a fun task. It's so awkward with that fitted sheet and everything. But when I say to him, buddy, there's actually a correlation between having a clean pillowcase and having clear skin. So why don't we weekly, you and I together, it'll take 5 minutes tops. We'll change your sheets. I'll teach you how to wash them. And then we can put other ones on. Then suddenly changing the sheets has meaning to him and he has a stake in it and he's more likely to be involved in the task. And then the third thing that I love to talk to families about is the energy that they give to this concept of chores, right? I mean, the literal definition of chore is work that is repetitive, tedious, unappealing, difficult, right? But we're using this word to describe the most beautiful, meaningful work that we do, right? Caring for others, nurturing, nourishing, creating environments that are safe and healthy, and also protecting our investments, our home, our car, and then adhering to community and municipal standards. I mean, this is really important work, meaningful work. And so I don't know if we can change the word chore, but I think we can definitely change the energy that we give to the word and to the work.
I love several things that you said, but I mean, the last point of giving it meaning, I think that is huge for ourselves too, right? Because a lot of the mindset is, oh my gosh, we have to do all these things. But it is meaningful, it is beautiful, it is necessary and brings more thriving, right? And so
That's it. That's it. I mean, at its heart, this work is all expressions of gratitude for all that we have. And if we can look, it's not glamorous. Very often we're doing it, we're exhausted.
yes.
Um, but if we try to center it in gratitude, that may help lighten the weight of it for us. And certainly, if we can engage our partner and our children in the work by framing it in that way, that will definitely lighten the load for women, which again is inequitable. Women globally carry 75% of unpaid care work, and
Yeah,
it's becoming a wellness issue.
absolutely.
Women have 80% of all autoimmune diseases and are twice as likely to report anxiety, depression, and it has all been connected to the weight of the expectations and what we just presume women are going to show up with on a daily basis. And it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And I think often we need to change our mindset of, I think we kind of sell our family short in their willingness to contribute or their willingness to help out, right? Because what you were saying of explaining the why and connecting it back to our family values and caring for one another and, all of that, I think they would. I mean, I've seen it in my own family where they're happy to help if, we kind of talk about it, we know what we're all doing. And even when we do things together, and we just, okay, let's all clean up the table. It's so much
Mhm.
faster. We do it together, instead of this, oh, you didn't do that thing, right? It's
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
the communication method definitely changes the
And also like eliminating this idea that it's not only leisure activities that can lead to family bonding. I mean, there's so many things. I have all these memories of my dad, who I lost 10 years ago when I grew up. So many of my most vibrant and beloved memories of him are of us doing stuff around the house, like putting together the lawn furniture in the backyard, or me holding a ladder steady while he climbed up into the attic, or sweeping the garage, or whatever it is. I mean, those were moments of bonding and connection and productivity. And he was teaching me and empowering me. And so it's not only going to the water park or going out for pizza that count as family bonding times. If we take the time to do this work of the home together, it can be, I dare say, even fun.
Yes, yeah. So we do a lot of cooking because I love food and I love everything, and that's kind of my YouTube channel-esque, It's kind of how it was
Yeah,
birthed, but, the kids love being in the kitchen with me, and they love cooking with me, baking with me,
the
baking breakfast,
best.
and I love that, like, those
Yeah.
are some of my most cherished moments with my,
Yes.
mom, grandma, and, I hope that the kids continue to like it, and then plus they have these life skills, right, where they can feed themselves,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
actually frees me from, all of that time in the kitchen. Like, if they need to make breakfast, I have
Yeah.
confidence that they are able
Yeah.
to do that.
And
Um,
that's critical because, I think a lot of families feel that, childhood is for play, and children shouldn't be distracted from that, and that, adolescence, and then the high school age, really they should be focused on studies and athletics and whatever pursuits are going to guide them to the path to college. And I have so much respect for that. And we definitely need to support children in that way. But don't forget, when they leave to go to college, like they have their independence now. They have to be able to sustain a life. Like they have to know how to do laundry. They have to know how to make a healthy meal. They need to know that, like, the lint filter needs to be cleaned, or the dryer could be set on fire. These little things that, if you don't arm them with these fundamentals, right? It's such little things you don't think about. But like yesterday, I loaned my son a hair dryer, and I noticed that the filter had, some lint, and I was like, oh, look, you have to clean this out, or else it's like dangerous for the appliance. Like maintenance of appliances, all these things that we as adults in the household might just do as a matter of course. But when we actually start to parent out loud and do this work out loud, and the children, because children are always listening, right? They're always soaking it in. And the more you talk about it, they're like, oh, okay, they're armed with that, they're empowered with that. And then they can take that to college too. And, probably be less stressed when they get to their studies because they've had a healthy meal, they've had a good night's sleep in clean sheets, right? So it's all together.
yeah. And I see the confidence in them too, or the excitement. when they're able to do these things, and I know we've we have a lot of different friends, right? Different ages, different whatever, and they get really proud when they're like, "Oh, I can crack eggs," or whatever it might be,
Yes.
all these
Yes.
things, and it is a confidence booster. So I love that for them, and even when they clean their room, it doesn't happen all the time, but the other day
Yeah.
they came and said, "Can I show you my room?" It was beautiful. Like I saw the floor, know? And
So
they're
exciting.
so excited. Their smiles were huge. Like I said, it doesn't happen all the time. Don't think my house is perfect and
Yeah.
clean all the time.
No, no. And and it's not even about that, right? It's about setting standards that are meaningful for you. It's not about anyone else's expectations. It's not about fear of judgment. It's about like what's meaningful to us? How busy are we? What can we really manage? Like when can we shut the door and like not even know that either there's a mess in there and who cares? And especially, this acknowledgement that even within one family, everybody's wired differently. Everybody thrives in a different kind of environment, right? Like I love things to be neat and tidy and organized and put away. That's my vibe. Now, my older son prefers to be surrounded by things that really bring him joy. He loves his space to be, he loves like things on all the surfaces that he can look at and have memories and I love that for him. And so I don't impose my standard on his space, but what we do is we help him create a standard that's meaningful for him and that he can sustain. So the space is the best of what he needs it to be, not anything to do with what I would want it to be.
I absolutely love what you said because so many times I have to let go of their room, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, while it's not what I would do, it is their room, but yet it's okay. I'm hearing you say it's okay to talk about, okay, what is the standard for you? Yes, there can
Yes.
be stuffed animals all over your room, but what can we do so that we can walk through and have a
Right.
rock, right? Or whatever.
As long as it's a healthy space,
Mhm.
then and they understand, you're not going to leave pizza boxes and, dirty cutlery or whatever. Um, then it's important to have these conversations again at the family meeting or whenever it works for you. Just like tell me what you love about your room. Like,
Mhm.
what do you play with the most? What do you like to look at the most? Like, is there anything in here that's kind of clutter that you're not really engaging with or connecting with anymore that we should maybe shift out, maybe give away or give to your younger sibling or whatever it is. And so to have them, that's a muscle to be built too, right?
Mhm.
That ability to reflect and ability to like disconnect when it's time for things. I mean, if you've ever tried to clear out like a child's play area, when you see, there's things in there that they haven't touched in so long. But the second you say, should we
Yeah.
maybe go through these like books and toys and whatever? And suddenly they're like, no, all of this, right? But it's understanding then, well, but listen, I have a very special place where we can give it. And do you know the impact that it will have on other children who don't have anything like this right now? And if you're finished with your things and they can start to play with it, imagine they'll feel the same joy that you felt when you first received it. And so then they become again, they have a stake in it, they have an interest in the result. And then especially if you take them to wherever you might, make a donation or a contribution, then they can kind of realize like, oh yeah, it is actually better off somewhere else. And now I have space for whatever the next thing is.
Mhm, mhm. I don't know how many times we've had to have that conversation, especially during the holidays
For
and different things,
sure.
where grandparents want to buy stuff for them. We're more experienced people, but grandparents always want to buy stuff. And so we tell them we have to make way for the new. If you want
Yeah.
more stuff, that's fine, but we
Yeah.
can't keep everything. Who can we think of that, would benefit from this? And so I love that conversation. We're kind of talking about different ways to talk to our kids. Are there other language shifts that you would propose for discussing some of these things and even elevate the importance of the unseen or chores, as we call it?
So, ultimately, you want this to be an experience that kids enjoy and feel successful in. So, you want to bring them to tasks that, match their personality, match a skill or strength. You articulated that you love to match your kids to a passion, which is food and eating. And I think um, it's all about like showing a sensitivity to where they're going to thrive. And again, it's not about like you have to help. It's about I see an opportunity to teach and empower you. And this is very much a start where you are thing, right? I wrote a book for young children. I mean, I guess the target is really like a 5 to 8 year old. But if you have, if anyone listening right now is younger or older than that, this is to inspire a similar conversation, right? And it's just really all about like welcoming people in to participating in how your family thrives. And so again, it's all of the positioning, it's all of the language. Um, and I think you modeling it too, right? Modeling your own energy and then starting by bringing kids in to do things with you so that they feel it's time together, which is really what kids want at the end of the day. I mean, they'll fold rags with me if it's with me.
Yeah.
And so positioning it like that, like an opportunity for a connection. Let me teach you something. I want to show you something. Did you ever notice this? Did you know we do this? Or, hey, could I get your help with this? I have a 13-year-old son and he's bigger and stronger than me now. So, he's really, really helpful. I mean, everything from opening pickle jars to reaching for things up high. And so when I call him in to do things like that, then he's suddenly, what are you doing? Like, oh, can I do that? And especially with recipes, right? And kids really want to participate in the kitchen. So I think it's just, again, the openness and the energy that you're presenting. I know the work is stressful, but we're trying to break that cycle of women carrying an inequitable load. And by talking to kids of all ages, of all genders, hopefully we can look to a future where the work is more equitably held and shared.
Yeah. It's kind of talking to that next generation and making sure this is built in from the beginning because a lot of people weren't raised like this, right? And I love the bringing them in because we have I think especially in COVID and then post, we've just gotten used to ordering a lot of things like Instacart or
Yep.
different delivery services, and it saves a lot of time, especially not going to Costco or all those things. But
Yeah.
every time I kind of say, okay, what do we need on our list, so that it's not just me making this list and doing it, but they also have input of, okay, what fruits, okay, what are we cooking? What do we need for these meals? And
I
so,
love that.
yeah, so I would love moms to just think about all the different ways in which we do all these things, and it might be faster to just do it ourselves, but if we can start, bringing them in, it might be fun for everyone, even though it takes a little bit longer.
So I also have an 11-year-old, and he is the chief laundry folder of our family. And it did start with folding rags, so small little square cleaning cloths. Um, I showed him how to do one, and he did the rest of the pile. And so then he owned that every week when we washed them. And then we went to the next thing. We went to socks and underwear, we went to t-shirts, so we went to, and bit by bit, they build this muscle, they build their confidence, they feel the self-esteem that comes along with the completion and the contribution. And he doesn't even question it anymore. I leave the clean laundry on top of the dryer. He grabs it and folds it. And you know what? When he's folding laundry, he watches Premier League
Mhm.
soccer highlights. And
Yeah.
so, like, of course, I want to make it fun for him. Of course, I want him to have an experience that is fulfilling for him and enjoyable. So he doesn't look at the work as like, so a lot of families will say, do what you have to do so that you can do what you want to do.
Mm.
And I understand that completely, but it sets up a dichotomy of the work of home not fitting into the bucket of the want to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so by pairing the two things, he wants to watch the soccer highlights. I'm like, amazing. You can totally watch the soccer highlights. Here's a pile of laundry to fold while you're doing it.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, perfect.
And kind of letting them do it your way to what you're saying. My kids also do their own. I kind of bring out the whole bucket and we kind of pick at our own, like we pick out our,
Yeah,
and then they don't fold, they just stuff. And before I went,
perfect.
oh gosh, how are you gonna find anything? But they do. They
Yep.
they figure it
Yep.
out. And I've had to let go to say, okay, that's yours to own, that's yours to
Yeah.
do, and they do it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. And you've fully released it from your mind. It doesn't stress you out. You don't feel like you have to redo it. And you're empowering them, you're trusting them, and they feel that.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's a huge relief on all. So there's like different things like that, and they've been doing that, like you said, from a young age, where at first it's just okay, pull out, find your socks or whatever it is, And for moms that have really small kids, it just starts small. It does, they're not going to be folding or doing stuff right away, but the more fun and involved they are from the beginning, right? And that they
Yeah,
see that this stuff is happening. It's not just okay, after they go to bed, the laundry is done, folded, beautiful stack is magically on their bed.
exactly. Yeah. And I think what they realize is that it's not that each little task is so heavy or so difficult. It's the weight of all of it together. When it's rests on the shoulders, typically of the mom, that's when it becomes overwhelming. But emptying the dishwasher, it takes 3 minutes.
Mhm.
And so when they experience that, when you invite your 13-year-old to own emptying the dishwasher, then they're like, okay, like I see that. It's not a huge deal. And, you can say, what do you think the standard should be? Like, what can you manage? What would you feel comfortable with? Here's what we would need as a family. Like, we have to have enough bowls for breakfast the next morning. If you look in the cupboard and see that we have enough, and if you don't have time to unload it tonight because you have too much homework, no problem. You can do it tomorrow after school. As long as we have enough bowls for breakfast, we're good to go. And so you set the standard as a family that's meaningful for you. And if you don't care if you have enough bowls and you want to have your cereal in a mug, then that's great too. It's like no pressure, right? So often we're doing more work because we think we have to do it, right? It's like some kind of standard of perfection. But if something's not meaningful to you, let it go.
Mhm.
As long as it's, not a health and safety thing, I'll say.
Yes. And the importance of that standard, as you mentioned, right? When we set and agree upon that, you can come back to that, and then it doesn't end up becoming this nagging or this I don't know.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, having to tell them over and over and over again. It's just
Exactly. We're evolving from a generation of, because I said so
Mhm.
to because we agreed to it.
Mhm.
And when you do set standards as a family and you have buy-in from everybody and everybody can say, okay, yeah, I understand. So let's take garbage, for example. It may not seem very sexy to have a conversation about garbage, but it is so fulfilling to have it once and then you never have to have it again. And to your point, you don't have that nagging. You don't have either the duplication of effort or the complete forgetting of a task because the whole family understands garbage day is Tuesday. This is what the municipality requires of us. The bins have to go here. We agree that we're going to empty out the kitchen and all the bathrooms. We agree that we're going to refill the bags in all of the bins, empty bags or bin liners or whatever it is. And we agree that if we pull the last bin liner out of the package, we're going to write on the grocery list or the Costco list that we need more. Does everybody understand? Okay, who owns garbage? So the owner, do you understand all the things that are involved in this? Yes. Okay, perfect. And then everybody else in the family, release. You're not going to think about garbage because you trust that this person is going to fulfill it to the standard.
And as you were talking, I'm just going, the skills that the kids are learning of kind of management and it's almost like program management or
Yeah.
meeting facilitation. It's just all these different executive functioning kinds of
Yes.
skills that they're already learning at a young age is amazing. If we start,
You're really so right to point that out. And in fact, there is research, numerous cases that directly correlate children's involvement in chores from a young age with higher levels of success, both professionally and personally, later on in life. So there was one study done by Harvard which followed people for 75 years, and they were able to indicate a correlation between children who were involved in chores and higher levels of success in academics, in business, and in personal relationships.
who doesn't want to give that to our children, right? And it
Right?
saves us this time and energy and stress in the long run or even in the short run, it's just a win-win all around. I love this. I could talk about this forever, but I know we want to keep this at a decent amount of time. And so would you like to share anything specifically about the book that you loved about it, that you want people to know about the book?
Well, what I really wanted the book to do was to help spark conversations in families. And I think, again, so often this task of how do I get my kids to participate in chores sits on the mom. And so I wanted to provide this to families as almost like a tool, um, to start the conversations and begin the reflection of, yeah, we actually have a lot to be grateful for, and I want to be a part of expressing my connection to that. And so I think, again, however old your children are, there's an opportunity to say, you know what, I was listening to this interview and I really loved the idea. And it's not something I've ever done before, but I would love to have kind of a family meeting and just talk about all these things that we do every day, and like, are we focused on what's meaningful for us? And could we shift our priorities to be more efficient or feel more connected? Or is there anything that you don't feel heard about or that you need support about that you're missing? And these meetings really can turn into so much more than discussion of tasks. And it allows us to really feel understood. And again, as I mentioned, we know so much more than ever about our brains and how we're wired. And it's such an opportunity to really honor that, which we know about our family members, and provide the support that everybody needs to thrive.
Yeah, it's so easy to keep doing what everybody else is doing just because that's what we're supposed to do, or this is what our
Yep.
house is supposed to look like. But to really align within our family and have that value of, no, we don't need to be in 5 sports at the same time just because everybody else is, or, whatever.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so important. So I appreciate you, Lori. We like to end every discussion by giving everyone a quick action or challenge that they can take today because there's so much information that we're hearing. We want moms to have this quick win that they can take. Do you have an action or challenge for our moms today?
Yeah, so I guess that would be to plan that first family meeting and explain to everybody in your family that this is like a new concept that you learned about. It sounded really good, and the people that recommended it to you had a lot of success in just creating efficiency within the family. And also, what I find is really meaningful to share is, as you mentioned before, it reduces stress, it reduces nagging, it reduces frustration and resentment. And it's just a great tool for sort of aligning on goals. And again, with standards being offshoots of that, that help to relax the family.
Mm.
And ultimately, what happens is there's less work for everybody because you become more efficient when you approach things as a team and as an organization. You'll see, I mean, just like a lot of people watching probably work for professional organizations, you don't walk into work and say, so how can I help? Right? You have a clearly defined role that you've talked about expectations with your colleagues and what everybody's going to contribute, and it comes together and it's a finely tuned machine. And I think we have the opportunity to treat our homes like that as well. And so kicking off the conversation, talking about it as an opportunity for your family to reduce all the sort of like negative vibes and create efficiencies and ultimately enhance the wellness of your family. Those are hard to argue with. I think hopefully everybody should be at least willing to listen to the first chat.
And I like your comment for books because books, especially with little kids, right? There are so many questions that they ask. And it's just a beautiful tool, like you mentioned, to start this conversation, to be able to have um, kids ask questions about, oh, what's this, what's that? And it leads into a beautiful conversation as a whole family. So thank you for writing that. It is
Oh,
books are
thank you.
fantastic and what we can give to our kids. Anything else that you want to share with our moms before we wrap up?
Just just acknowledging that so much pressure is put on mothers and expectations, and not to start a whole new conversation, but we're socialized, all of us, our whole lives, that women have maternal instinct and women are more connected to the work of nurturing, and mother knows best, and baby wants mama, and all these things that not only put immense pressure on women but effectively alienate men. And our opportunity really is to move away from those concepts, as hard as it is, because of course we are going to take pride in feeling that we are somehow better equipped to provide nurturing and nourishing. But the reality is that men are also fabulous caregivers. And if we really want to focus on our wellness, it's important that men come into that work. And also, if we want to thrive in paid work, we need for men to participate equitably in unpaid work. And so that's what this is all about. That's what talking to young boys and young girls is about, is creating the future of equity and the future of wellness.
And also, that kind of reminds me, I hear so many of my friends that do stay at home say, oh, I'm just a stay at home mom. And I go, oh my gosh, you gotta stop saying that because I actually think it's harder to stay home and take care of these little people. And it's 24/7, so just the way that we think of it ourselves as well
Yeah.
as how we portray it really does make a difference. So,
It's incredibly valuable work. And it is, as Eve Rodsky says, the work of our humanity. And it's a privilege for all of us to be involved.
it's so beautiful. Like I said, I could keep talking about this, but I appreciate you, Lori. Thank you so much for just sharing your your wisdom, your experience in this beautiful work of sharing with families and improving our families. It's so great to have you.
It's
Um,
been wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And as always, mamas, drop your questions in the Facebook group because we want to get your questions answered. I'm sure this has stirred up a lot of questions, a lot of how do I start doing this? So drop those questions. We want to get those answered for you. And tell us how your challenge goes. When you set up that meeting, we want to know how it went. You can always change things up. It's flexible. You get better as you go. And we just want to journey with you. It is a learning journey all along. And so we hope we can do that for you and come back for more amazing summit speakers.